G'day viewers, and welcome back to Aussie Backyard Food. Well, as you can see, it's a beautiful early spring day here in the Blue Mountains. The sun's shining, the birds are singing, and the bees are buzzing. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, just what it takes to get your bees through winter. Most beekeepers would know that winter's probably the harshest season on bees. And let's face it, it's not natural for bees to coexist in such large numbers of colonies in the wild. So what we do as beekeepers is we do create a largely artificial situation, a largely artificial environment to try and, well, make it easy for beekeepers. But what can we do to make it easy for bees and ensure that that colony will get through the winter? Let's go and have a look at my bees. See just how well they've been doing. Right now, they're bringing in loads of pollen, which is a good sign. It means that they're putting away lots of food, lots of stores for baby bees in preparation for building up nice, big, healthy colonies. So, as I've mentioned before, you can tell a lot about the health of a colony by what's going on at the front door. A couple of weeks ago I noticed the first drones starting to emerge from the entrance of some of my hives, which is a good sign. A colony will only start producing drones, which are the male bees, when they are doing really well. And bringing home lots of pollen is a good sign as well, because that means there's lots of little baby mouths to feed. So let's check out this colony and see how well they're going. The first thing I notice when I look at this hive's entrance is the sheer number of bees trying to get in and out. The number of bees coming to and fro from a colony is always in direct correlation to the size of the colony. The next thing I notice is there are a number of worker bees returning home with quite large baskets of pollen on their hind legs. That's always a good sign that there's a steadily growing number of brood or baby bees within the colony. The next thing I notice is there's a few bees chewing away on my rubber entrance reducer in an attempt to increase the entrance size to allow a greater passage of bees to and from the colony. I will remove this in the next couple of weeks just to make that job easier for them. So I won't have to cause a disruption to this colony by rudely opening it up to know that it's doing well. As far as environments for beekeeping go, you'd be hard pressed to beat where we are here in the Blue Mountains. It seems like with global warming we barely even get a frost these days. So yeah, 600 metres above sea level, you got flowers flowering all year round, and that is a factor when you're choosing your site for bees. Whether you are a migratory commercial style beekeeper or whether you're a hobbyist like me, where you keep your bees in situ. There's pros and cons for both types of beekeeping. migratory beekeeping, you've got the benefit, you can take your bees to the nectar source. You can take your bees to one nectar source, and that's where you get the lovely single origin styles of honey like bloodwood, ironbark, leatherwood. That's one of my favourites. But that's not always beneficial for the bees. Some of those nectar sources, or food sources, if you're looking at it from a bee's perspective, have fairly limited nutrients. So a commercial beekeeper will have to provide synthetic pollens, synthetic food supplements for their bees, just to sustain them through that period of low nutrition. That's one of the negatives. One of the benefit, I guess the main benefit of that is you get a distinctive honey flavour, a predictable honey flavour from each food source. The benefits of in situ beekeeping is you can site your bees in a really good spot, and if you're lucky like me to have a good spot like we do here in the Blue Mountains, where you've got flowers flowering all year round, you can afford to take a bit more honey from your bees in autumn when they're starting to shut down. It's not such a risk. In some climates, people keep bees where it snows, and their hives can be covered in snow for up to a couple of months at a time. So that would be a different kettle of fish. You'd have to leave a lot of food on your bees in that instance. So you need to ask yourself as a beekeeper, do I take the bees to the flowers, or do I bring the flowers to the bees? Here we're pretty lucky. There's over 600 native species that are endemic to this area, and they flower at all different times of the year, and they've all got different nutritional values to the bees. So the bees will bring home whatever they need at whatever time of the year it is. Here we see some examples of some of the native plant species that flower in our area through winter. Here we have some wattle, a few different species of wattle, some native grevillea. The bees really seem to get a lot of good nectar out of the grevillea, and some eriostemon. The bees smash the eriostemon every year. It must have some real good nutritional benefits for them. We've also put in a lot of different plants in our garden that will flower at various times of the year, and many through winter, which provides an additional boost for your bees on the days that they can get out when it's warm enough. Because bees will only leave the hive when the weather is at least 10 degrees Celsius. Not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but pretty cold. Most days we'll get above 10 degrees Celsius here, and the bees will get out. I'll include some footage of some examples of the flowers that I have in my garden that benefit the bees, and you might try and plant those in your garden to benefit your bees, even if they're not your own, your neighbours, or the wild bees. Let's face it, you can't go wrong. You can never have too many flowers in your garden. Having a colourful and productive garden goes hand in hand with being a beekeeper, as well as providing an aesthetic benefit. You're providing a valuable multitude of nutrients for your bee colonies. Most of what you see in my garden are hardy perennials or self-seeding annuals. I'm not big on high maintenance plants that take a lot of water and a lot of nutrients and a lot of work to keep alive. Low maintenance is the order of the day. Because, especially in recent times, wild bee populations have so dwindled around the world, fruit trees are having to be pollinated by hand. So by keeping bees next to your orchard, you can significantly improve the productivity of your fruit trees. It's a common thing now for beekeepers to be paid to keep their hives in commercial orchards just to improve fruit set and productivity for the farmer. It's long been known that herbs have medicinal value for us humans. I think bees value these herbs for the same reason. To me, that's what permaculture is all about. Different systems within the garden overlapping and benefiting each other, with the ultimate beneficiary being the gardener in the centre of it all. Who would have thought that just by growing some flowers, you could make yourself feel so well? A bee will fly for up to 6 kilometres from the hive for a valuable food source. Of course they're going to favour shorter journeys because it's only going to mean they're going to waste all that energy if they have to fly the 6Ks each time. I sort of compare bees to a farm animal living in a paddock. A 12-kilometre wide circular paddock. They're not going to venture too far from the centre of that paddock because there's a nice big lush dam in the middle with lots of green grass around it. So it's got to be a real worthwhile food source for them to venture to the edge of that paddock. One of the main disadvantages I see with migratory beekeeping is you're only providing that one food source which might not be that beneficial for bees. So you've got to provide additional synthetic pollen substitutes. It's a bit like saying to a person, you can only eat apples, but you can have as much as you want. And I know you're probably not going to feel too good after a couple of weeks on just apples, so I'll give you a bottle of pills, multivitamins. Have as much of those as you want as well. Yeah, is it any wonder that our bees are doing so poorly around the world when this is the way we treat them? Another advantage to in situ beekeeping is your honey will taste different every year. Every year I've been beekeeping, my honey will have its own unique flavour, and depending on what the season dictates. And when I open up one of my hives and I look at a frame that contains brood, nectar, pollen, a good healthy frame that's full of bees, you can see different coloured cells, a mosaic of pollens, and each one of those cells will have a different nutritional value for that colony. And look for yourself. I reckon they look pretty healthy. So if you're thinking about getting into beekeeping, or maybe you already keep bees, have a think about what you plant in your garden and how it can directly benefit your bees, and they'll be sure to reward you for it. Catch ya.